So for tonight's reading we've got some P G Wodehouse, and this is the immortal extract where, for the first time ever, Bertie Wooster meets his new man, Jeeves. I shall always remember the morning Jeeves came. It so happened that the night before I'd been present at a rather cheery little supper, and I was feeling pretty rocky. On top of this, I was trying to read a book Florence Cray had given me. She'd been one of a house party at Easby 2 or 3 days before, and I'd just recently got engaged to her. I was due back at the end of a week, and I knew she'd expect me to have finished the book by then. You see, she was particularly keen on boosting me up a bit nearer to her plane of intellect. She was a girl with a wonderful profile, but steeped to the gills in serious purpose. I can't give you a better idea of the way things stood by telling you that the book she'd given me to read was called Types of Ethical Theory. And that's when I opened it at random. I struck a page beginning, "The postulate or common understanding involved in speech is certainly coextensive in the obligation it carries with the social organism of which language is the instrument and the ends of which it is an effort to subserve." All perfectly true, no doubt, but not the sort of thing to spring on a lad with a morning head. I was doing my best to skim through this bright little volume when the bell rang. I crawled off the sofa and opened the door. A kind of darkish sort of respectful Johnny stood without. "I was sent by the agency, sir," he said. "I was given to understand that you required a valet." I'd have preferred an undertaker, but I told him to stagger in, and he floated noiselessly through the doorway like a healing zephyr. That impressed me from the start. Meadows had flat feet and used to clump. This fellow didn't seem to have any feet at all. He just steamed in. He had a grave, sympathetic face, as if he too knew what it was to sup with the lads. "Excuse me, sir," he said gently. Then he seemed to flicker, and he wasn't there any longer. I heard him moving about in the kitchen, and presently he came back with a glass on a tray. "If you would drink this, sir," he said, with a kind of bedside manner, rather like a royal doctor shooting the bracer into the sick prince. "It's a little preparation of my own invention. It is the Worcester sauce that gives it its colour. The raw egg makes it nutritious. The red pepper gives it its bite. Gentlemen have told me they find it extremely invigorating after a late night." I would have clutched at anything that looked like a lifeline that morning. I swallowed the stuff. For a moment I felt as if somebody had touched off a bomb inside the old bean and was strolling down my throat with a lighted torch, and then everything suddenly seemed to go all right. The sun shone in through the windows, birds twittered in the treetops, and generally speaking, hope dawned once more. "You're engaged!" I had, as soon as I could say anything. I perceived clearly that this cove was one of the world's workers, the sort no home should be without. "Thank you, sir. My name is Jeeves." "You can start at once." "Immediately, sir." "Because I'm due down at Easby in Shropshire the day after tomorrow." "Very good, sir." He looked past me at the mantelpiece. "That is an excellent likeness of Lady Florence Cray, sir. It is 2 years since I saw her ladyship. I was at one time in Lord Worplesdon employment. I tendered my resignation because I could not see eye to eye with his lordship in his desire to dine in dress trousers, a flannel shirt, and a shooting coat. He couldn't tell me anything I didn't know about the old boy's eccentricity. This Lord Worplesdon was Florence's father. He was the old buster who, a few years later, came down to breakfast one morning, lifted the first cover he saw, said, "Eggs! Eggs! Damn all the eggs!" in an overwrought sort of loud voice, and instantly legged it for France, never to return to the bosom of the family. This, mind you, being a sort of luck for the bosom of the family, for old Worplesdon had the worst temper in the country. I had known the family ever since I was a kid, and from boyhood up to it, this old boy had put the fear of death into me. Time, the great healer, could never remove from my memory the occasion when he found me, then a stripling of 15, smoking one of his special cigars in the stables. He got after me with a hunting crop just at the moment when I was beginning to realise that what I wanted most on earth was solitude and repose, and he chased me more than a mile across difficult country. If there was a flaw, so to speak, in the pure joy of being engaged to Florence, it was the fact that she rather took after her father, and one was never certain when she might erupt. She had a wonderful profile, though. Lady Florence and I are engaged, Jeeves, I said. Indeed, sir. You know, there was a kind of rummy something about his manner. Perfectly all right and all that, but not what you call chirpy. It somehow gave me the impression that he wasn't keen on Florence. Well, of course, it wasn't my business. I suppose that while he'd been balloting old Warpleston, she must have trodden on his toes in some way. Florence was a dear girl, and seen sideways, most awfully good-looking. But if she did have a fault, it was a tendency to be a bit imperious with the old domestic staff. At this point in the proceedings, there was another ring at the front door. Jeeves shimmered out and came back with a telegram. I opened it. It ran, "Return immediately. Extremely urgent. Catch first train. Florence." Rum, I said. So? Oh, nothing. It shows how little I knew Jeeves in those days. I didn't go a bit deeper into the matter with him. Nowadays, I would never dream of reading a rummy communication without asking him what he thought of it. And this one was devilish odd. What I mean is, Florence knew I was going back to Easby the day after tomorrow. Anyway, so why the hurry call? Something must have happened. Of course. But I couldn't tell on earth what it would be.